International Women's Day to you, Fairlyasian. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing good. Happy International Women's Day to everybody.
And happy International Women's Day to everybody in our chat. Um, so this stream is a collaboration between the Twitch Women's Guild and SOBA. And we'll be raising money for the 1,000 Dreams Fund. And on that note, I'd like to introduce today's charity partner that we'll be raising money for. So for the second year in a row now, the Twitch Women's Guild is partnering with the 1,000 Dreams Fund to raise money for the Broadcast Her initiative. The program is designed to uplift women and femmes in content creation and grant awards up to $1,500 to support recipients with essential needs such as hardware upgrades, equipment purchases, and travel to major industry conventions such as TwitchCon in San Diego and TwitchCon EU.
So 75% of all grants raised during the Streams for Dreams in March will be granted out to Twitch Women's Unity Guild members this spring to help them attend TwitchCon 2025. This includes at least 25% of funds going to trans women. So you can help support this initiative by scanning the QR code in the corner or clicking the donation link in the chat.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a great initiative, and I hope we can raise some money for them.
Yeah. It's always nice to participate in these efforts, especially ones that are, I feel like, really relevant to the local community. I feel like I've participated in fundraising efforts, but it's just a little different when you can like meet people and see people that are impacted by these organizations. So it's
Yeah.
very nice.
You know, I've never heard of like International Women's Day before. Did you celebrate it in any way?
Oh, myself.
Yeah.
I feel like I've heard about it a few times. So just through like I know like the university, so like University of Washington and whatnot, they have a lot of like initiatives for uh underrepresented groups. And so I had heard of it through a lot of things through that avenue, but I've never, I think, formally celebrated it. It's more just kind of like acknowledge its existence, read the little blurb and whatnot. So I feel like in this day and age though, and the times that we live in, getting more actively engaged is a good thing, right? Because there's a lot of interesting things going on for women specifically.
Yeah, there is. But yeah, you're here celebrating with us today, so.
Yeah, good to be here. Good to be here.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna
Sorry, go
say,
ahead.
no, it's okay. I was just gonna say this is the first time I heard about Women's International Day. So what is International Women's Day?
Yeah, so International Women's Day is, I think it's just, you're supposed to highlight, the importance of women's issues, and how gender inequality affects women specifically. So I think, there's various ways that people celebrate International Women's Day. It's like highlighting women's achievements, raising awareness, like I said, for gender inequality issues like pay gap. It's just like a primary example. Lack of representation, and so this is something that kind of comes up, and I think can be relevant too to like the gaming industry because, right, like the gaming industry as a whole, and even just culturally, is kind of more catered to historically male audiences.
Yeah.
And then also too, just like the other unique challenges that women face, like gender-based violence and whatnot.
Yeah. So how are we going to celebrate International Women's Day in today's stream?
So thanks to a lot of your hard work specifically, we have we have a lot of people in representing different parts of the community. So Seattle Tekken, we have women in tech, we have some other individuals from like indie game development and whatnot as well.
Yeah, Seattle
So
Indies.
yeah, we're gonna talk to a lot of people today. It's gonna be very informative.
Yeah, I mean, I love events like these because it really gets the whole community involved and we get to collaborate in ways that we wouldn't have otherwise have a chance to do. And I'm glad it's to advocate for women. And I'm glad today we have a voice, but it should be every day, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's kind of, I know it's like, well, we were having some, like, sidebar conversations while we were doing some of the prep work, for today's show, but I think that's one of the things too is, like, for me personally, it's kind of like we draw this distinction, men, women, based on, lots of different things, right? You kind of like people get sorted into categories, and it's like for I don't like that woman or, anything really feels like I'm being sorted into a category. It's kind of like, well, this is part of who I am, but, I can celebrate that part and appreciate that part. But at the same time, too, it's like, that's just a piece of who I am. And it's like, I want to like look at a person holistically, right? Instead of
Mhm.
thinking of it as like, well, this is the thing that makes us different, or this is the thing that makes us the same. It's just like, well, it is what it is. Let's just, work with what we've got, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, what does equality look like to you as a woman? Like, what would be different to you?
It's funny because I used to think of these types of questions as very much like, "Oh, well, like, everybody I just want everybody to be treated equally," right? But it's just like, well, it's not really possible for everybody to be treated equally, first of all, right? And then second of all, it's like, it's not even necessarily fair that everybody's treated equally because not everybody is given the same things and the same resources, right?
Mhm.
Or even has, the same ability. Like everybody has things that they're good at and things that they're not good at or whatnot. I think for me, equality is just it's like I wanna walk into a room or a situation and not have any feelings that anybody has any ill intent, right? And it's
Yeah.
like I know that this is like a very convoluted answer, but it's
Mhm.
more to me like everybody feels like they belong, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
it's like that's kind of regardless of anything, like, they feel like they belong for whatever reason, whatever thing makes them unique, it's not like something that makes them an outcast or an outlier, right? Or, like, feel like they don't belong, so, I feel like as I've gotten older, it comes back more to, like, feeling like you belong as opposed to or, like, you're allowed to be included as opposed to, like, any specific thing or any specific treatment, does that make sense?
I mean, I think your answer is similar to my answer because I feel like being truly equal feels like you're not being put into a box, you know, like, oh, you're too feminine, you're too masculine, you're a tomboy, you're this, you're that. Like, you can just be you. And that's what equality kind of means to me.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
like that.
Oh, thank you. So the battle for like equality for women has been going on since like the 1700s. Um, I feel like in my mind, Abigail Adams is the first like woman in American history to really start that conversation about equality for women. John Adams was, you know, making laws and drafting a lot of new U.S. laws, and she said, "Remember the ladies when you're making these laws." So she was
Mhm.
trying to advocate for women in a space where that just didn't exist. And that was like the first instance of that.
Yeah, for sure. Um, and even, just looking at, like, the history of, women's rights and all that, um, I don't know if you've ever watched so one of the hot shows on Netflix right now is Bridgerton.
Oh, I
Um,
haven't watched that yet, but I heard of it.
I I fell down the rabbit hole and I marathoned all 3 seasons.
Mhm.
But one of the characters in that show is very she's, like, basically like a blossoming suffragette,
Mm,
essentially.
okay.
Um, and it's just funny because there's a lot of very interesting quotes in that show where they're just like, women basically exist to run the household and raise families and, that's kind of like that's that. And
Yeah.
one of the interesting quotes from the show is something along the lines of, men can't even dream that women have all these aspirations, and it's our job to make them see it.
Mhm.
Um, and it's just so interesting because I think of how many difficulties we face just in the current world, with in here we're talking about like, Roe v. Wade in 1973, and
Mhm.
that, as a lot of people know, was overturned essentially by Dobbs v. Jackson in the recent history. And
Yeah.
so it's just like these are all very you look at this list of accomplishments that women have made over the years, and it's like we still have to be vigilant and fight the fight, right? So it's very interesting how significant a lot of these what may seem antiquated issues are, like, they're still significant today.
Yeah, yeah, we have made a lot of strides, but at the same time, it does feel like, 3 steps forward, 2 steps back sometimes, like, with, you know, abortions and stuff like that. Like we're fighting to get that back, right? And like,
Yeah.
losing some rights and then having to fight to get those back again. Um, I think it's interesting how like I guess like the suffrage kind of came from abolitionists fighting for the rights of slaves, and like in that fight they found out that um, they were severely underrepresented as well. Like they didn't have all of the rights that they deserved. And in 1851, Sojourner Truth made this famous speech called "Ain't I a Woman?" Like, if you guys have not read it, look it up. It's very passionate. I love it. And I think it's really interesting to look at the history. Like the first women didn't really get to vote until 1920, and then the first Black women didn't get to vote till 1963.
Mhm.
Women weren't allowed to use credit cards without a husband until like 1970. Like it's crazy, like how much we've had to fight for, you know, and the fight
Yeah.
continues.
For sure.
Yeah,
There was an interesting relevant to, like, streaming and, like, content creation, there's this, like, interesting movement going on, it's, like, particularly, like, TikTok and things like that, people call it this is delving a little bit into, like, tinfoil hat conspiracy theory territory, but, it's this thing called the trad wife movement, which is, it's a lot of, like, very catchy and, like, visually appealing clips of, women being mothers and, you know, embracing traditional gender roles. Um, but I read an argument that, it's kind of it mirrors a movement that happened not too long, after women's suffrage, which was basically like, "Okay, we can't legally stop you guys from having jobs, having bank accounts, voting, but we can show you that it is more appealing to not go to school and stay home and not be in the workforce and stay ignorant and be pretty and, just be a housewife. Your life will be so much better that way." And
yeah,
I'm not saying necessarily that, like, people who are creating this content are like, "Oh, they're, whatever." Everybody has their own reasons for doing things. I don't wanna judge anybody based on just, like,
yeah,
appearances and all that. But it does kind of get me start thinking, like, if the way that social media permeates all of our lives, it's like whatever gets pushed by social media, we're very subject to its influence, and so that
yeah.
is just one thing that's like, I need to be careful about the type of media that I consume because somebody's pushing a message, right? And it's like, what message are they trying to sell me?
Yeah, yeah, I mean, that's the thing, like, it's you have to be very cautious of, like, what you're consuming because you never know, there are messages in everything, right?
Yeah.
Alright, so I think we are gonna switch gears a little bit here. I think we are gonna interview each other and talk a bit about, our experiences as being women. Um, so I guess so you work in, the tech sector, right?
Yeah, so I am a server administrator. So I deal with like networking and specifically I work with like software, so like keeping the software up and available. And so in the context of my job, so I work for a hospital network. So it's just making sure that um, the things that the doctors need are available when they need it. And so some applications that I've dealt with have been related to like the software that doctors use to like monitor your heart while you're while they're having surgery, for example, and like drug administration and like getting your prescriptions sent, from the doctor's office to, the insurance for approval and all this stuff. So these kinds of, the more our world becomes technical and the more like high tech every industry becomes, it's like more and more people are needed in these types of roles, even to just keep the lights on.
Yeah.
So that's part of the reason why I find like my work pretty fulfilling because it's like I get to kind of help, but at the same way I'm helping and I don't think I have the um fortitude or the stamina to be like a medical professional. So this is kind of my way of
Oh.
helping without having to get my hands too dirty.
Mhm. Oh, that's great. So, like, have there been times that you faced adversity? Like, I don't, if you can talk about it.
Um, I have so this is from earlier in my career. Um, I feel like I don't look for reasons for people to, I guess, think badly of me or for people to not like me. So sometimes I'm like a little oblivious when people are maybe a certain way. But I have when I was early in my career, I was calling to a client because at this point I was working not for a hospital, but for like a consulting company.
Mhm.
So I called a customer and I was like, "Oh, just calling to confirm that, we'll be there at, 4 o'clock." And she's like, "Oh, no, sweetie, it's fine. The engineer will be here. We've already got an appointment scheduled." And I was like, "Yeah, that engineer's me.
Oh
I'm
no.
I'm not I'm not I'm not the
Oh
secretary."
no.
But that's okay. So yeah, it's just like it was like little things like that. Um,
Yeah.
but I mean, that's kind of I think like the devious thing too, right? About it's like a lot of times these days people know that there are certain things you can say and that there are certain things you can't say. And so it's
Mhm.
like they'll hide it. And I think that's part of the interesting part about, like, today's culture too is, like, post-COVID, it seems like so many people are, like, willing to say these things that before it's like they said the quiet part out loud, like, "Hold on a minute, this is
Yeah.
a little different."
Yeah, that's really interesting that you say that because I don't know, maybe it's just we were all so pent up from just being inside for so long, you know? I wonder if they're doing studies on that because that's pretty interesting.
Yeah. I know
Yeah.
I'm a little bit more outspoken, I feel like. I feel like ever since the pandemic, I've gotten this attitude like, "No, I'm not gonna let people take advantage of me," and then because of that, I'm, like, a little bit feistier than I used to be, I don't know.
Oh, that's good. I think we all need to be a little feisty sometimes, you know?
Yeah. Well, so how about you? What, what's been your experience as so you're primarily, it seems like, involved with the Seattle Tekken, I know, but, from what I gather, Seattle Tekken's a pretty cool group, so I
Yeah,
don't
they're pretty
imagine you
awesome.
have any stories about that, but what about just in your general day-to-day life?
Well, I would say, yeah, I'm involved with Seattle Tekken. I do like their social media. I'm like their social media manager. And I'm there for the community if they want to do any events or anything like that. But I think when I first wanted to get involved in the FGC, I was a bit hesitant because like the reputation really precedes it. Like it's very toxic, as most would expect. Some games are like worse than others, but yeah, that was why I didn't. And like it's not even just towards women, like just towards each other. Like there's so much toxicity. So I'm not a toxic person. I don't like confrontation. That's not me. But I ended up going into the space and yeah. Uh first off, I would like to say Seattle Tekken, they're super welcoming. Like I've had nothing but good experiences there. I was kind of hesitant at first, but yeah, everybody's welcoming, everybody's friendly there. We actually have Kei-otic we're going to speak to later from Seattle Tekken. She's also a member and she competes and stuff. And they have a code of conduct that they like to uphold. So it like I feel safe at all the events I've been to for Seattle Tech, and we're kind of lucky. We're in an area where people are a bit more like open minded and like they care. So it's been a good experience getting involved with the FGC. Um, so currently, right now, I'm on a team for the Pacific Northwest. They're called Mecha Storm Titan. And I just started with them like last month, I want to say. Um, and I was telling them this story, like, while I've been in the FGC, I have witnessed, some discrimination towards women. My friend, she does tournament organizing, and she felt like she wasn't getting support from the rest of the staff because, players wouldn't listen to her because she was a woman. So they would just ignore her. But like, she's the one who enforces the rules. And if she doesn't have any support, she can't do her job. So this one day on Twitter, she was having like this kind of like, how you can broadcast live on there. She was doing that. And there was a gentleman in there who was really, he was very vitriolic, like he was very confrontational, and he got kicked out. And then he kind of took the battle to Twitter, like, just messages and stuff. And it wasn't very nice. And I was just like, we deserve a safe space. And then he had some choice words to say that I won't repeat now. But that's kind of when I realized that we need safe spaces in this space. And so the other day, I've been thinking about this project for a while, and I presented it to my team. So we're going to be doing this project to help keep, women in the LGBTQ plus community safe. I don't know how much time we have left, but okay. So let me read a bit about the team so you can kind of get a feel for them. The Mecha Storm Titan is a FGC team based in the Pacific Northwest. The team includes both male and female players and is committed to principles such as respect, professionalism, integrity, communication, and health and well-being. So they're really big on mental health and promoting mental health. And, having two women on the team, it's probably one of the more diverse teams I've seen since I've been involved in the FGC. Let's see. Mecha Storm Titan follows a structured code of conduct with a 3-strike disciplinary process. The team has been involved in local competitive events and soon national events. A few of our members are competing in Texas Showdown at the end of March. Additionally, Mecha Storm Titan has a podcast covering anime, gaming, and the FGC, hosted by Major Hurricane, Erebus, and Titan. So that's kind of us in a nutshell. It's been such a pleasure to be on a team with such amazing individuals who are open-minded, and I feel safe there. They're very easy to talk to. Let's see. So my idea that I presented to them is I've also, since I've competed in multiple like different tournaments, women have contacted me to make sure that those tournament spaces were safe. They would ask me like, were you comfortable? Like, did you have any problems? Were there any issues? And I was like, oh, so this is a thing. Like, it's kind of a privilege when you don't have to worry about things like that, right? I'm lucky enough that I bring my husband with me, and he'll make sure I'm okay. Or I'll go with friends. Now that I'm on the team, I can go with the team, and I don't have to worry too much. But not everybody has that luxury. Like, what if you live in a place where you don't have any friends available to you? They might be busy or something. They can't assist you. It's like, are you just not gonna go? And you have to kind of miss out because you don't feel safe. So my idea was the counter hit network of the FGC would be an initiative to create safer and more inclusive space for women in the LGBTQ community. So what it would do is just like, it would help people network to get in contact with each other. So you could kind of have like a competition partner, and you can like buddy up, or there's like checks in place where like if you need a phone call or like you need us to message you just to make sure things are going okay and you're all right. So we want to have like more accountability, and we just want to make sure people are safe.
Buddy system. It's like a buddy
Yeah,
system.
yeah, it's like the buddy system. I like that idea. Plus, you get to meet new fighting friends and stuff. So I think it would be a great way to network and make friends and make it safe for everybody. Because I know a lot of people are like they don't want to get involved because they just know about the toxicity, but there's other parts to it too.
Yeah, and that kind of like echoes back to some of my gaming experience. So like I play MMOs, like I play World of Warcraft Classic, I play Final Fantasy 14. Um so my experience, like the Final Fantasy 14 community is really generally open
Mm,
to, you know, anybody and it's like appeals strongly I think, to a wide variety of audiences like men, women, LGBT. um, I've met a lot of people, but I still hear stories from, like, some of my friends, who identify, some of those groups that they encounter these things in any kind of multiplayer, environment. You're always gonna have, like, some percentage of the population that's just not cool, so,
yeah.
um to hear about that, like, I haven't had too many experiences myself, like you said, I've been pretty lucky, to either have, like, friends or family, and, I was a little sheltered from a lot of these experiences until I started getting older and, like, meeting other people and hearing about their stories. um, for me, what was, like, really eye-opening was, like, the convention scene, like, I never realized how dangerous the convention scene could be for women on their own. And my first experience with this, and hopefully last experience, but I was out with my significant other. We were at like an after party for PAX, for example. So it's like,
Mhm.
drinking, partying, everyone's had like a rough day, everybody's in a good mood. People wanting to like relax and party. And so my partner had to go to the restroom for he was gone for like max 15 minutes. And then
Okay.
somebody came over, invited themselves to sit very close to me, like, physical contact. I could feel this person sweating up
Oh.
against me. He started,
Oh.
like, rubbing my back, and it's just like, "Nah,
Oh
nah,
my
man."
god.
And
Oh, that's so
then I was
awkward. I would just freeze up. Like, I hate stuff
well,
like that.
yeah, like, that's kind of what I did, and it's like, now
Mm,
that I've had that experience, I can kind of look back and try to figure out how I would react differently to that, but
yeah.
that's part of the reason that, like, that experience was very 'cause, once you reach a certain age, I feel like when you talk to people, it's like pretty much everybody has some kind of experience along that a line or another, and that's really sad because, like, we talk about, well, sexual assault can happen to men or women, right? And it's just like, while I understand that, at the same time, it's like, you know, generally speaking, sexual assault happens more to women than it does to men, and it's
Mm,
like, because of that, like, dynamic, it's like there's so many difficult things you have to traverse as a result of that. It's like, well, first of all, it's like, sexual assault against men gets minimized, and then, they have other
yeah.
issues related to that, but then on the
Mhm.
flip side, it's like, well, then women are always, on high alert when
You're
it
on
comes
higher
to, like,
alert,
their
yeah.
safety, right? So
Mhm.
it's like it's a lot of interesting and difficult issues and conversations, and it's like, it's hard to explain it to somebody if they haven't experienced it, and it's like, how do you get a man who is less likely to have experienced this to understand this when they don't encounter these situations on the regular, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about that question too because, like, did anything ever happen to me? I was like, I can't really think of anything that's happened to me, at a convention or anything, but then I just remembered, like, I was on a bus and it was crowded and somebody just kept touching me, my backside, and I couldn't figure out who it was, and I just, like, it's
Yeah.
just brazen in a public place too,
Mhm.
and I was too
Yeah.
and I was just too scared to, like, say anything, you know? So,
Yeah, and I think that's why it's so important that we talk about these things and, like,
yeah.
like this stream and getting together and, some people I know when it comes to, like, especially in this day and age, again, like, just the times that we live in, like, sometimes talking about these issues, people are just kinda like, "Oh, you're making a big deal of out of nothing, like, this isn't like an everyday problem," whatever, and it's like, yeah, but it kind of is like
It
an everyday
is. It
problem.
is an everyday problem, yeah. Er
Yeah, and it's, like, not being able to talk about it, I think that just, like, isolates people and keeps people from speaking up, and then, these problems persist because people don't know how to deal with it, or they're just like, "Well, if I complain or if I say something, people are gonna say I'm being blah, blah, blah. They're gonna say I'm being hysterical," or,
or you're
whatever.
lying. Yeah, you're flat out
Yeah.
lying, yeah. Yeah, I've heard
Yeah.
that before too, and, it does make you not wanna speak up, and then if you don't speak up, people act like it's not going on, but, it is.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Mhm. So, I mean,
But mhm.
you're like a WoW streamer too. Like, how is that space for women?
Um, I think so I'll tell a little bit of a story, I guess, and this is kind of it's like kind of a drama story, a little bit more like, kinda
Okay.
gossipy, I guess.
Oh, I like
But,
the drama.
yeah, so in both WoW and Final Fantasy, so the WoW and the Final Fantasy communities have kind of been there's a little bit more of an intersection, than there used to be.
Mhm.
Um, and I think partially so that has to do with the pandemic. I think, other things it has to do with, people are dissatisfied with, like, the MMO scene right now, and so kind of people who used to have WoW as, like, their main game are, like, branching out into other games and trying other things. So WoW has a really competitive, like, what they call, like, race to world first scene, and that's a scene there are quite a few I shouldn't say quite a few, there are women who are involved in that and who have been successful, being top end players. But
Mhm.
somebody in the Final Fantasy community who he himself was like a high end player kind of made this like, you know, supposedly innocuous comment like, "Well, how come there aren't more women in the Final Fantasy like, end game scene? Like why do we not see so many women?" And it later came out that this guy was like a serial cheater. He
Oh.
would, talk to women and make them uncomfortable so that when they would join these high-end rating teams and like these end game content games, they would end up interacting in such a way that made the women uncomfortable, so then the women would leave. And there are people in the Final Fantasy 14 community who are, like, known abusers, who have, like, had
Mhm.
restraining orders,
Oh,
things like that
no.
taken out against them, but they were in the Final Fantasy, like, high-end scene for so long, and it's
Mhm.
just like, people just don't know how to not be weird. Like, that's the best way that I have to say it, and because of
Yeah.
that, like, women get forced out of these groups because it's like, well, like, kinda like, like we were saying earlier, it's like, "Well, am I gonna get called a liar? Are they gonna choose to
Yeah.
replace me because I'm not as good as him and he's a better player, and they'd rather keep him than me?" Like, it
Mhm.
just it becomes this, like, stressor that it's just like, I'd rather just not, and then they just quit playing the game, and that
Yeah.
really makes me sad. So that's, like, a big thing in online, like, multiplayer, like, MMO, and I see that in WoW, but yeah, I see it in WoW, I see it in 14, but it's definitely an issue.
Yeah, I mean, I think we could go on and on about this issue, but we have some interviews to get to, and we'll do so right after this break. We'll be right back.
Yeah, see you in a little bit. Back, everybody. We are here now with Angel. So we're going to talk a little bit about Seattle Indies. So Seattle Indies is a nonprofit organization that hosts events and activities for game developers in the Puget Sound area. I've had the pleasure of attending some of their events. They're super cool people. I've always had a great time. Learn, network, share their creations. So Angel Mero is a dedicated community leader within Seattle Indies, serving as both a board member and community manager. She's graciously decided to come here and talk with us today. So her involvement spans 9 years, during which she's contributed significantly to the organization's growth and inclusivity. Angel's been instrumental in onboarding members monthly, creating, maintaining the Seattle Indies Discord server, managing social media content. including like job opportunity threads for members of their community, assisting in planning events like the Seattle Indies Expo, which is abbreviated SIX. It happened. I got to go to the Seattle Indies Expo. It was a lot of fun, and I actually learned about a few games that are coming out shortly here that I'm very excited to try. So I'm very grateful for that. Um, but it is a nonprofit organization. So Seattle Indies is a nonprofit organization dedicated to supporting a vibrant and inclusive community of game developers. They host various events that empower individuals to create games, share feedback, network, and showcase their projects. They strive to provide friendly spaces for developers to congregate for support, discussion, and news on game development, in addition to highlighting works of talented creators to the general public. Through her extensive volunteer work and leadership, Angel has played a crucial role in advancing Seattle Indies' mission and supporting the local game development community. So we'll get started with our questions here shortly. But so how did you first get involved with Seattle Indies?
So 9 years ago, I community managed for an indie studio and showed their game at an event called Power of Play. And I heard about the Seattle Indies from someone there, which got me curious. Back then, Seattle Indies was really small, and we weren't a nonprofit yet. The ones involved were incredibly passionate and hardworking. Most of them had full-time jobs and developed their games on the side, dedicating so much time and energy into their projects. Their passion motivated me to want to help. I noticed that there was a need for community growth, for marketing, visibility in the games in the community. So I decided to community manage for them ever since.
Very, very cool. Um, quick interruption, but I just wanted to highlight there was a $100 donation for our charity fundraiser. So very appreciated. Thank
Yeah,
you very
thank you.
much. It's
Thank you so
super
much.
awesome.
All right. So the next question is going to be, what are some unexpected opportunities you found through networking in the Seattle Indies community?
So networking to me, it's more than just giving someone your business card and making small talk. It's about building relationships with passionate people who share similar interests. And the longer that you're in the game industry, the more that you realize how much of a small world it actually is. You can meet someone at an event and they'll say, "Oh, I know this person too. We worked on this project together." It's always exciting to me when I meet someone that I already know that happens to be in the game industry already. In fact, I actually met my partner back in 2016 at a Seattle Indies holiday party. But prior to that, I had met him at a concert that he played in years before, completely unrelated to the game industry.
Wow. Well, that's pretty amazing that you guys like connected and then like ended up reconnecting, just kind of being in the same sector.
Yeah, I met a couple of people also at the Seattle Indies holiday party. Uh, we ended up connecting because I found out that they also play Final Fantasy 14.
Oh.
So that was pretty cool. It's Pants McGee.
Oh
So
yeah, I like Pants.
yeah, Pants is
He's
really
cool. He's a
fun.
cool dude.
Yeah, so that's always really exciting and fun. So speaking to indie people who are interested in the indie gaming scene. So, what advice do you have for newcomers trying to make meaningful connections?
Network. And by network, I mean make friends. Like I mentioned, instead of networking by giving business cards to people, attend our meetups, play test people's games, ask questions. Our community is full of knowledgeable and friendly people that are willing to help and answer questions or give advice.
Okay.
Yeah, it's interesting because sorry.
Oh no, no, go ahead.
It's interesting because I feel like growing up, you people say it's like it's not about what you know, it's about who you know.
Hmm.
And as much as, like, the older I get, I think I start to understand. It's one of those things where it's just, like, you have to reach a certain point of, like, life experience before you, like, unlock the secret, and it's like, yeah, I do understand that a little bit more, but it's like when you're a kid and you're younger, you're just like, "Ah," it's like, I can do it, I'm capable of anything, right? And then you realize, like, it really does take a community to get a lot of these ideas off the ground. It's like you can't just do it yourself. And so I feel like I feel like it's not as limiting as maybe I thought of as a kid, but now as an adult, I'm like, no, it just means that you have a big group of friends and you guys all do it together. You know, the power of friendship, right?
Mhm. Yeah, and to your point about networking and not really networking, but making friends, like it's interesting because I feel like, if you're into gaming and you're into streaming, we do network, but they're our friends too. They become close. We get to know them, they get to know us. It's interesting because I don't feel like you can really do that in other industries. It's a little different with like content creation and streamers. You collab with people. I've interviewed some of the Seattle indie developers for like my podcast too, and it's fun getting to know people and creating those relationships and stuff like that. Um, but I was wondering, how does Seattle Indies create a welcoming and inclusive networking environment?
Inclusivity is something that we strive to focus on. We ensure that our events, either in person or online, and on our social platforms, are safe for everyone and for any skill level. We use name tags with gender pronouns at in-person events to prevent misgendering, and we have event organizers in person and moderators on our Discord to ensure that everyone follows our code of conduct. We also have the Diversity Collective group. It's led by DM in August. We have channels in our Discord where LGBTQ, women in games, disabled or neurodiverse, people of color, and more can chat and support each other in a private and a safe space. And they have separate meetups from the usual Seattle Indies meetups.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely good to hear, that there's attention paid to those things, especially nowadays where it's just like it feels like these safe spaces are being either taken away or they're being, criticized and ridiculed. And so I think even just hearing people acknowledge that these spaces deserve to exist, to fulfill the needs of their community members, like I think just saying it out loud is so important. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Are there any, let's see, are there any initiatives or programs within Seattle Indies that are specifically aimed at supporting women in game development?
Yes, on top of the Diversity Collective that I just mentioned, we also have a mentorship program that can connect women with other professionals in the industry that identify as a woman.
Yeah, but I mean,
Cool.
it sounds like Seattle Indies has like so many programs and just a lot of opportunities to like include others and make you feel like you're a part of like something bigger. I really like that. Have you seen any noticeable changes in the representation of women in the Seattle indie game scene over the years?
Absolutely. Just a decade ago, we didn't see very many women-led studios or developers. Now we're seeing much more in all aspects of game development, and this is just the beginning.
Hmm.
So what barriers do women still face in the industry, and how can organizations like Seattle Indies help break them down?
Oh, there are a few barriers. So I grew up as an online gamer playing first-person shooter games like Counter-Strike and Team Fortress Classic,
Oh, that's
and it
good.
was mostly male dominant. I was barraged with harassment every time I used my microphone or if they found out that I was a
Mm,
woman, even to this
mm,
day. It would be ignorant to say that there's no misogyny or sexism in the game industry. I have seen multiple posts on social media about how women don't belong in game development or how they are the reason that a game got bad reviews or that they refused to buy the game because a woman made it. It's like saying, I refuse to watch this movie or read this book because a woman wrote it. This kind
mm,
of hostility and ignorance, it makes it hard for women to feel motivated to even want to pursue game development, to stay in the field, to speak up, to take leadership roles. And, those are all major barriers. That's why I feel like our community is so important. Women here, they're supported and they are safe. I have never once felt like I didn't belong during a Seattle Indies meetup or event.
so how do you see the impact of women-led indie games shaping the industry?
Honestly, women are just people who love making and playing games. We are all human, and there's nothing different about a woman-led game. It's a game made by someone who happens to identify as a woman. But when we get more people with diverse backgrounds, cultures, and preferences, we get a wider range of ideas, stories, and game mechanics. And that diversity is what makes video games so amazing. But I'm hoping that the more we normalize women-led games, the less backlash and sexism women will experience.
Yeah, and I think I really resonate with that description of it where it's like especially when we talk about identity, right? And it kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier where it's like I don't want my identity to be a box that contains me, but rather my identity is something that just shapes the bigger influences the bigger part of who I am, right?
Yeah.
And so yeah, in a perfect world, and that's kind of why too, like I don't like these very reductive statements where it's like, "Oh, well, I don't see color, I don't see gender," and things like that. It's like, well, you should because that's part of a person's uniqueness, right? And it's like at a certain point, like it shouldn't be a big deal to be a woman or to exist in any of these other spaces. And I think that's kind of similar to what you're saying, where it's just like that's kind of how I view it, and that's my personal view. It's like these are it's an important part of who I am, but it shouldn't be the first thing you notice about me, right?
Right.
So are there any upcoming events, projects, or initiatives that you're excited about?
Well, every year I get excited about the Seattle Indies Expo, which was mentioned earlier. It's also abbreviated SIX. We have both an in-person and an online event, and it's 1 day per year each. We usually have the in-person SIX on Sunday during PAX West and our online Twitch stream towards the end of September. Last year, the in-person SIX, we had over 4,000 people attend.
Oh, wow. That's a lot of people.
The end of the year must be very busy for you guys,
Oh,
I imagine, because
yeah.
the holiday party is quite an
I love the
event as
holiday
well. So if
party.
anybody's interested, it is the probably one of the best holiday parties in the Seattle area, in my opinion.
We prep for SIX a long time.
So how can allies in the gaming community contribute more to an inclusive and supported space for women?
I would say to listen and act. The chances of meeting a woman who experienced harassment or discrimination in the industry is a 77% chance. And that's just the reality that we're facing. We need to call out others when we see toxicity. Ignoring that behavior is just being complicit, and pointing it out, even in small ways, will show them that this type of behavior is unacceptable and it's just not funny. We can also support women by buying their games and writing positive reviews. The industry will not change if only women are the ones pushing for it.
That's 100% true. We do need allies and we do need help. It's hard to, gain equality when you're trying to do it yourself. Um,
Yeah, it's like
so
fighting an uphill battle, right? So, it's like you're
yeah,
fighting at a little bit of a disadvantage, so, yeah, all the friends that you can get is always helpful.
yeah, yeah, we're all in this fight together. Um, so So, to conclude, did you have any socials that you would like to promote, or any women's like charities or initiatives you want to talk about?
Oh, you can support the Seattle Indies. You can check out the website, seattleindies.org, or join the Discord at Seattle Indies, or actually it's discord.gg/join dash Seattle Indies.
Okay.
It'll be up on the website though.
Um, so let's see.
Yeah, so we'll share those links here in the chat.
Yeah,
Thank you,
thank you so.
production, for
Yeah.
helping us out with that. Yeah, and the as for specifics on the holiday party, I know information goes out about that kind of closer to when that happens. So if you the way that I've kept track of it is, primarily through like the Discord and the website and all that. And I think
Mhm.
anybody can attend. You just have to purchase a ticket and whatnot. And I think if you are a part of the Seattle Indies community, I believe there's some discounts too sometimes. So just if you're interested, definitely join that Discord. Keep an eye out. It's even if you are not yourself an indie developer, there are always indie developers who are looking for people to demo their games and give feedback. You'd be surprised. So I think if you're just interested in that at all, meet people, talk to people. There are so many people that I've been able to interact with and meet, and the Seattle Indies community has honestly been one of the friendliest and welcoming communities. So
And
definitely
you don't have to be
really
in Seattle to join Seattle Indies.
for sure.
If any of the viewers are not from Seattle, you can join.
That's great. That's good to know. So, Fairlyasian, we went to 6 one time too, right?
Yeah, so I went to 6 last year. That was the first time I'd been. I actually didn't know. So it was I wanna say, like, I don't think it was a secret because of how many people were there, but it's like, I kinda wanna say it was a secret because it happened, like, right next door to PAX. Um, but yeah, that was, an amazing experience. I actually so PAX has their own indies section of the floor, but I've personally found that I got so much more out of the Seattle Indies experience because there are a lot of people and there's a lot of interest, but because everybody's a community, everybody kind of knows each other, you kind of slide in and it already feels like a little bit more of a friendly atmosphere. And people there are all very passionate about what they're doing and they're passionate about their projects, which is not to say that people at PAX aren't passionate about their project, but you're catering to like a very different audience, right? So you get to have more in-depth conversations. You get to like ask the developers like, "Oh, what inspired you to create this game? How did you do this? How did you do that?" Whereas like at PAX, because they're trying to appeal to so many people and their time is very split and divided because they've got like however many tens of thousands of people flooding in every single day. Um, it's a very different experience, and I prefer kind of the Seattle Indies setup to it. So how about you? What was your impressions? You were helping out a little bit with the production stuff, right? If I
Oh
remember.
yeah, I got to interview a few indie developers, and it was really busy, but I still felt like it was a nice break from PAX. It was nice to kind of come over there, see some games, see some indie games, because sometimes PAX would get like too crowded and you couldn't play anything, you couldn't see anything. And after like being frustrated with that, it's nice to like go over there and like play some games. You can actually like talk to the developers. I tried talking to some of the developers at PAX and they were just so busy. So it's nice to kind of have that like make that connection with the developer. And I got to ask them questions about development. Like they're really involved with their communities, they get feedback, they play test a lot. So that was pretty cool. It's really cool kind of finding out about the process it takes to create a game and how involved people can get with them. Yeah, I kind of wish I could make games because it seems like so much fun to have that community around it.
Yeah, one thing that has, like, always fascinated me too is, like, especially people who are self-publishing or, like, not publishing, but, like, creating their own game, and basically, like, they don't have a team, right? And so they're sourcing things from multiple places. They're having to, get art done. They're, having to, like, hire friends or members of the community to do, like, voice work if they're any type of voice or, figure out I think all of these little things that you don't think about when you consume a game, and it's just like seeing a single person put one together and have to figure out how to make all these puzzle pieces fall into place. I think it's a very interesting thing.
All right. So I think that is our time for now. Thank you so much for coming in here, Angel. You did such a great job.
Thank you for having me.
Oh yeah, of course. Anytime. So we are gonna go to a quick break. I hope you guys are enjoying this. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll be right back. Hey, you guys, welcome back. So for our next segment, we are here with we're here with Cinda and Kei-otic of Seattle Tekken. And Cinda is from SOBA, so she's here to help us host this segment. So Cinda, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, more than definitely. My name is Himecinda. I'm also go by Cinda. I'm a Filipino-American femme content creator, and I dedicate my channel to uplifting diverse voices in my community and focusing on intercultural communication. During the day, I work in aesthetic medicine, and at night, I moonlight as a VTuber or anime girl. So,
That's cool.
and so right now we are being joined by Kei-otic of Seattle Tekken, and we are going to talk a little bit about what is Seattle Tekken. It's a local community of Tekken players based in a greater Seattle area dedicated to fostering a welcoming environment and helping members improve their Tekken skills. Let me see. Oh. Is everybody good? Sorry.
Yeah, no
They
worries.
utilize an ELO-based ranking system similar to that used in chess to track and motivate player progress. The community organizes events and discussions primarily where members can engage, plan gatherings, and share insights. Additionally, Seattle Tekken maintains an active presence on Twitch, streaming matches and events to showcase local talent while providing entertainment for fans. For a comprehensive list of all their upcoming events, their offers and things, you can definitely stay informed through their official website. And they do host local tournaments as well as meetups. Those kind of resources will be provided as well. Seattle Tekken aims to build a cohesive and supportive community for Tekken enthusiasts in the Seattle area.
And so to continue along with that, so we are joined today by Kei-otic. So Kei-otic is a cosplayer and gamer based in Seattle, known for involvement in the Tekken community. She frequently shares her cosplay work and gaming experience on social media. So for instance, she posted about her excitement for Tekken 8, mentioning that while many have been enjoying the game, she hasn't had much time to play it herself. Additionally, she shared a reel celebrating a flawless victory in Tekken, showcasing her enthusiasm for the game. Beyond gaming, she's cosplayed characters like Elisa Bosconvich from Tekken. Sorry, I'm like butchering that name. Highlighting her deep connection to the series. Her active participation in both cosplay and gaming communities underscores her passion for the fighting game community.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really excited to have you here.
Thank you for having me. This is actually like my first time, so I'm a little bit nervous, but I'll do my best.
Oh, you're awesome. It's okay. We're just having a fun conversation. Don't be nervous. That's what I tell myself anyway. So, what made you enter the fighting game community, and what has your journey been like?
Ooh, okay. So I didn't join the FGC until 2018, but I started playing Tekken since Tekken 4. My dad took me to an arcade and he said, "Hey, Kay, look, a fighting game. I think you'll like it." Oh my God, I was obsessed.
Oh, really?
I would every time I go to the arcade, I'm like, "Dad, please, we have to play the fighting game again." And then later on, I was gifted a PSP for Christmas. And I was also gifted Tekken 5 DR. And I noticed that the Sasuke looking character, and I'm like, oh, I think it's that fighting game. So I begged my parents to buy it for me. And then over time, I kind of stopped gaming just because I was like a kid at the time. Stuff kept getting more and more expensive. And then so when Tekken 7 came out on arcades, I would play it at round one. And then my friend said, "Hey, it's on the console." I'm like, "Oh, whatever. Maybe I guess I'll buy it." And then I had a lot of fun. And then my friend sent me videos of like JDCR versus Saint when they were like beating up everybody during that time. And I was like, "Wow, this is so cool. I want to compete too." And then he showed me like the locals that are going on. And because I'm heavily introverted and I didn't know anybody, I was like, "Oh, I don't want to go by myself."
Yeah.
And the first tournament I went to, he was participating in a different game. And since he was there, I was like, "Oh, okay, I think it'll be okay." Yeah, I got my butt beat so badly. But now that I've had more experience, you can't really go anywhere unless you go at least O2 here and there. And there's nothing wrong with that. So
yeah, I feel like I've gone O2 and a lot in my day. It's okay.
All right, so we'll move on to the next question. How did you get involved with the Seattle Tekken scene?
I think I found out about Red Bull Conquest. My friend told me about it. And then that's the first time I met a few Seattle Tekken players there, and then they told me, "Hey, we hold locals at GameWorks," and they also held some at, I believe, Highline College, and I would go to those. And then I met more and more people there.
I definitely like to ask a question as somebody who has only played Tekken Tag 2, as
Oh,
well as a
yeah.
female. So I've only had, and like all I know is like Josie Rizal from Tekken 7 because she's Filipino. What advice would you give for women wanting to join Seattle Tekken as well as somebody of different skill sets getting in? How does Seattle Tekken create a welcoming environment for those of us who have no experience?
Mm, I know it's easier said than done, but like the best advice I have is just go for it. I know it's really easy to be intimidated. I guess the easiest way is to maybe like have a friend go with you, even if they're not part of the FGC. At least you'll have someone to just kind of hide behind in case. But if you do have someone in the FGC, even if they play like a different game, it wouldn't hurt to have them come with you. It's a lot easier when they're holding locals that have like 4 games at once. Like let's see, Street Fighter, Tekken, and there's also like the anime fighters too. I'm not too familiar with them, mostly just because I'm very biased towards Tekken.
Same.
Yeah, it's definitely a huge plus to just have someone with you.
But it's definitely for the FGC, you would say that, it's pretty inclusive as like as a woman trying to get into those spaces, or what's been your experience so far?
In Seattle Tekken, yes, I haven't really had any bad experiences, at least within the community. If I were to go to like a convention, if it wasn't like hosted by them, I would come across like some not so nice people. But as far as like the Seattle community, they're very welcoming, and yeah, they've never been rude to me. They always said if you ever need to lab outside of locals, if you ever want like um, to play like online games, you can always join like our Discord and then just message people who want to play, stuff like that. Yeah.
Awesome.
So let's see. So how do you feel that Seattle Tekken creates a welcoming and inclusive environment for all players of all skill levels?
The thing is, I joined at a very, very low level. And because everybody was a lot better than me, I was like, oh, maybe I should just stop coming. But no, there are times where I would be up against someone. Yeah, I would lose badly, but they would say, would you like me to tell you what you did wrong? Would you like me to tell you how to punish that? Or do you know like the basic combos, stuff like that?
Hmm.
Um, there was one time I went to a local after being in the community for maybe a few years, and one of the people that run Seattle Tekken, his name's Silence. He's like, "Hey, this is a new player. This is his name." And then um, he brought him to us, and we were all like greeting him and stuff. It was really nice because he wasn't shy at all. He's like, "Yeah, I'm brand new here. I'm so excited to learn." I'm like, "Oh, this is great. No inch of shyness anywhere." And then so they took him in, and then he would lab with like a whole bunch of people. I saw in the background. I'm like, "Oh, this is great. I remember when I was a little guppy like you."
Aw.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing about fighting games that like have intimidated me is it's just there's so many characters. You have to know essentially like to be really good at the game in my opinion, at least like uneducated opinion. But it's like it seems like you have to know like what every character does. And so it's like it's not even if you hop into it as a beginner, it's like you can pick a character, but then somebody who's more experienced than you, maybe not even necessarily like super skilled, but it's like they just know the characters better. And so then they can pick a character that like counters you. And then it becomes this like big mind game. So it's like it's a lot of information you have to take in order to start mastering the game, right? So what local initiatives or efforts do you think should be implemented to help support and uplift women in the FGC?
Mm, Let me think for a bit. Mm, I think it'd be nice to have more coaches. we don't have too many coaches, at least ones that come consistently, I would say. If we had more like women coaches, I think it would provide like a safe space for newcomers, especially like beginners or people that are like us that were like intimidated in the beginning. Unfortunately, there were times where like when people would ask for help, um, there's an ongoing joke where it says, "Oh, just don't get hit." Yeah, well, yeah, sure, it's funny, but it doesn't really help too much. So if we get someone who's very like just more coaches for beginners would be good.
Yeah, and
Mm.
I think it's kind of it's important, like you're saying. It's like if you see people who are like you and who understand your struggles and where you're coming from, it's like a little easier to build a relationship and like build a rapport in order to overcome a lot of these challenges. So
Oh
it would
yeah, I
definitely
actually
be
always gravitate towards newcomers. I'm always like, "Oh, hey, like, have you been here before?"
Aw.
Or like, "Oh, where are you from?" Or sometimes if it's their first time, I'm like, "Oh, lovely," and then I try welcoming them if I can, just because I'm heavily introverted, and then I'm just like, "Okay, let me try to be the person that can help them." It's kinda hard, but I still try.
Yeah.
That's so great to go outside of your comfort zone and make
Mhm.
people feel welcome, though.
Yeah.
Um, have you seen any noticeable changes in the representation of women in Seattle Tekken? Like, how is the landscape? Oh, your kitty cat. How has the landscape changed over the years that you've been in Seattle Tekken as far as women representation?
Honestly, I haven't noticed too many changes per se. The only thing I can say is I've noticed that there's more like women on staff, which is kind of makes me happier. I also noticed that there are a lot of more women in the tourneys, but they're usually there supporting their friends or their partners, which is nothing wrong with
Oh,
that. But it'd be nice for them to play as well. In my opinion, I think Tekken is one of like the most like aesthetically pleasing like fighting games out there. And so whenever I see like like the girlies at like a tournament, I'm like, oh, do you play too? They're like, oh no, I'm just here for my boyfriend. I'm like, do you want to play with me? They're like, oh, I'd rather just watch. I'm like, that's fine. That's totally okay.
it's like the minimally like it's like let me peer pressure you, but I don't want to be a jerk, so I don't want to peer pressure
Right,
you too much,
right.
just a little
Especially
opening
bit.
if
the
this is
door.
my first time meeting them.
So what barriers do you think women still face in competitive Tekken, and how can the community work to break them down?
Like I said before, I've had the occasional opponents that see me as like an easy win just because I'm a girly. And I feel like even with more and more women joining the scene, it's not going to be a 50-50 ratio. I think it'd just be nice if everyone treated their opponents like they do with their friends or just any opponent like at a tourney. And then like it's very simple to just like before starting a match, I noticed we always do like the like good luck and a fist bump or good game, stuff like that. Um, is really, really simple. Um, some of my friends just like look at each other, nod. That too. Something simple. Um, but yeah, just be nice. Really not that hard.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So, how do you see women competitors, speaking of the competitive scene, and content creators shaping the future of the FGC?
There are actually a lot of women competitors out there that I look up to. One of them being Cuddle Core. I love you. She's really, really cool, really nice. Um, I've watched her Elisa play so often, and I've learned so much from her. And there was one move that she does with Elisa's chainsaws that I have burned into my memory, and I've gotten away with it so many times thanks to her. Also Kawaii Face Smiles. She's also very nice, very she streams a lot of Tekken. I think with more women joining the FGC, it'd be easier for other women joining as well. Yeah, it's a work in progress. I think it's going well.
Mm.
What are the best ways for women to engage with Seattle Tekken right now?
Ooh. Honestly, the locals. We have small locals. We have bigger locals. I usually just go to the ones that I see whenever they pop up on the Facebook group or the Discord. Um, like if you don't feel comfortable going to like the majors or something, locals are always like your safest bet. If you don't feel comfortable going like to one in person, online ones are available too, but they're a lot more difficult. There's like connection issues or someone not coming to their match on time, and it's a lot of waiting, like a lot of waiting online. So locals honestly are your best bet. Or they could always reach out to Silence. I'm gonna mention you again. He's he's the number one person I go to when it comes to anything involving Seattle Tekken.
Okay. Are there any upcoming tournaments, events, or projects that you're excited about?
Ooh, SoccerCon's actually coming up, which is held at the Washington Convention Center in Seattle. It's on Easter weekend, so I'm excited about that. Um, Also, if possible, I would love to go to EVO again this year, but that's way in the future.
Oh yeah, Evil's a lot of fun.
Very cool. Yeah, I know Rock knows all about Evo. She's all over Evo.
I've only been
Um,
there a couple of times, but it's fun.
Yeah, wasn't the temperature, it was in Las Vegas, wasn't the temperature like 110 degrees or something?
It got up to like 117. It was ridiculous. It was out of
Oh
hand.
my goodness.
It
Yeah.
has no business getting that out. It's
I
too
moved here
hot,
from
yeah.
Vegas. I miss it. Let's go back.
I mean, I would take
Sometimes
that
I miss it
now.
sometimes. I'm from Arizona originally, so
Oh no.
but so what can allies in FGC communities contribute to a more inclusive and supportive space for women?
Like I've said before, just treat others how you'd like to be treated. Um, if you feel you have the right knowledge, just offer a little bit of help sometimes. That's honestly how I got better. I've had people in the community like teach me a lot of stuff. Honestly, if you're doing bad, don't take it to heart. If someone ever like insults you, also don't take that to heart. Just make it like your motivation to work harder. There were sometimes I'm at a convention and they would have like the really small tournaments there, and I'm like, oh, let's do it for fun. Not taking it like too seriously. And there was one held at PAX, and someone saw me, didn't say like good luck, didn't say like any of that. I'm like, oh yeah, that's okay. If you want to play in science, that's totally cool. But I won every round, and after that, he immediately pushed away his fight stick and said, "Well, that didn't go as expected." And I was like, "Oh, I'm using my controller. I'm not gonna say anything. Let him move off his team." And there was another one held at an anime convention, and I'm not really good with mirror matches. I always feel like I don't play my character correctly. So when other people play it better than me, I'm like, oh God, okay, that's totally okay. And so I was talking to my friend. I'm like, man, I hate mirror matches. And my next opponent overheard us, and he walked up really close behind me and said, I hope you're ready for another mirror match. And I was like,
Oh.
did I do it here? I don't even know. It's really weird. Just be nice. It's so hard. But again, don't take it to heart. Don't take it like a threat. Just treat it like a challenge. If you don't Hmm?
Okay.
Awesome. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, you go ahead.
Thank you so much, Kei-otic. It's a pleasure to have you.
Yeah, thank you
Are
for
there
having
where
me.
can people find you? What are some socials that we can follow you at and support your local initiatives? And are there any women's charities or initiatives that you currently support that we should look into?
My Instagram is kei.otic. My Twitch is twitch.tv/chaotic99. Follow Seattle Tekken and also support Cuddlecore. I love you.
Yeah, she's pretty awesome.
And yeah.
Awesome. All right. So thank you both for being here. Cinda, tell us where we can find you on Twitch, and then we need to go straight to break.
Himecinda, Himecinda, everywhere.
All right. Thank you guys for being here. We'll see you guys after the break.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, you guys. Welcome back to our Women's International Day stream. So for this stream, we are collecting money for the 1,000 Dreams Fund. So for the second year in a row, the Twitch Women's Guild is partnering with the 1,000 Dreams Fund to raise money for a Broadcast Her initiative. This program is designed to uplift women and femmes in content creation and each grant awards up to $1,500 to support recipients with essential needs such as hardware upgrades, equipment purchases, and travel to major industry conventions such as TwitchCon San Diego and TwitchCon EU.
Sorry, do you wanna pick up the rest of that? Because I'm looking at the wrong page apparently.
Oh, no worries. So 75% of the grants raised during this Streams for Dreams in March will be granted out to Twitch Women's Guild members this spring to help them attend TwitchCon 2025. And this includes at least 25% of the funds going to trans women. You can help support this initiative by scanning the QR code in the corner or clicking the donation link in the chat. So now we are joined by Eileen Lambert of the Women in Tech Seattle chapter. The Women in Tech Seattle organization is a community and network focused on supporting and empowering women in the technology industry within the Seattle area. The group provides a variety of opportunities for women to connect, learn, and grow professionally. These opportunities include network events, career development workshops, mentorship programs, and community building activities. The organization aims to address the gender gap in the tech industry by fostering an inclusive environment where women can share experiences, collaborate, and support one another. It often hosts events, discussions, and initiatives aimed at increasing the visibility of women in tech, promoting gender equality, and helping women to advance their tech careers.
So in that vein, we have Eileen Lambert here to speak with us. So Eileen goes by she, her, and is a former technical program manager and community builder who made a career change into tech from nonprofit fund development and communications thanks to a woman in tech advocating for her, which left a profound lasting effect on her. She previously worked at companies such as F5, AWS, Amazon, Microsoft, Disney, and Starbucks before pivoting to social impact sector as a communications and program management consultant. She served as the director of Seattle Women in Tech since 2018, now as a chapter co-director since bringing on co-lead in 2024. Women in Tech Seattle's mission is to amplify, advance, and accelerate women in tech, especially those from non-traditional backgrounds, historically marginalized or underrepresented groups. In her spare time, she loves geeking out in nature as a naturalist and citizen scientist. Actually, that kind of I saw that in the citizen scientist part. And so would you mind, as a spur of the moment question, elaborating what a citizen scientist is?
Yeah, it just means hello everyone, good to be here. It just means anyone who isn't a science by profession or education can, use your talents of observation when you're outside in nature and observe, and then you would actually share that data. So you're actually like collecting and inputting data in various apps, such as, I'll just say I'm a huge birder. So there's an app called Merlin that helps you ID the birds, that is using actually AI in order to do that. And then there's, that's Merlin, yes, eBird, which is like kind of the sister app. They're both owned and they're both created and run by the Cornell Lab for Ornithology at Cornell University. And so eBird is actually a huge global database that when you enter in what you believe are these birds you have ID'd, then it goes into a massive database. And let's see, climate researchers use that data to actually be able to predict climate change based on the migration patterns of birds. So right now we're entering spring, there's spring migration happening. They're able to predict within a very accurate, window when birds are going to land in kind of your area and your region around the world. It's pretty cool. So
very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did a talk called Chirp GPT. I did a birding.
I love that.
Walk during in Seattle. Each year we have PNW Climate Week. I'm kind of a climate activist as well. So I did a talk on how AI is used in birding and how they're using that research to actually be able to really our citizen data is actually very much helping scientists because they can't be everywhere we are. So it's pretty cool. Yeah, it was fun. We did a forest walk at Seward Park, and that I had a naturalist friend of mine who works there at the Seward Park Audubon Seward Audubon Center do the kind of like nature talk, and I did like the tech, the AI talk. So it was really cool.
Yeah, it looks like someone in the chat was at Seward Park for that as well. So you've got some fellow bird lovers.
Excellent. Yeah. I love combining the two, as you can see, because I'm not currently actively working in tech, but I'm still, co-running this really large community of 2,500 plus in our Women in Tech Seattle group, and I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit more. But we're part of actually a global organization, a 501c3 called Women in Tech: The Global Movement. And we're on 6 continents around the world. And our organization is headquartered in Paris. And so we have, chapters in Asia, in Africa, in Latin America, like all over the world, except for the one, continent we're not on yet, Antarctica. But, there's women there. There's scientists working there. There's people working in STEAM in Antarctica. So, it's only a matter of time.
That's true.
And our mission, actually, our global mission is to empower 5 million women and girls in STEAM by 2030 through impactful action in 4 core areas: education, business, digital inclusion, and advocacy. We build skills and confidence, ensuring women are primed for success in the ever-evolving tech landscape. And that mission that you read specifically around our chapter, that's kind of more our focus. Like we really strongly believe that we really want to lift up those women that need kind of a hand up, like to enter in, the door of tech, because it's still very, very, very underrepresented with women, and even more so underrepresented women of color. And we don't want that to be the case. We want to work against that, especially now, and especially that a number of women in tech organizations that are kind of like we're in kind of our network have shut down just in the last year. There's an organization called Chick Tech. There's certain coding, like organizations with coding in the name. I'm trying to remember the actual one, but like in the last year or two. And it's possibly because the funding isn't there any longer. They used to get a lot of grant funding. They used to get, perhaps help with internships or other support from these larger tech organizations. They're just no longer able to support them. You all probably all have heard of Ada Academy. They had they laid off, I want to say like 70% of their staff like 2 years ago. A really high number. Yeah. So they've been really hurting, as we've been seeing in the tech industry. So those of us who are still here, we need to make sure there is still a presence and a women in tech, that the sector is having the support, is advocating, is helping build the pipeline, because we're still not having as many women enter into tech, probably because there's tech has a really bad reputation about being very male dominated, being toxic, as you told me, Christina, being not a welcoming space, not an inclusive space, and so we need more women in leadership. That's the message. We need more women at the table. We need more women leaders. So we very much advocate for women advancing their career. I would say a big part of what we do here locally is work on kind of career development, upward mobility in your career, getting those mentors, getting those sponsors, getting, overcoming your self-doubts. I moderated a panel just on Tuesday with UW Technical MBA program. We actually had a double header. One was at the end of February. It was with the UW MSIS program, UW Foster. So they're Masters of Science and Information Systems. So my colleague, Lindy, who couldn't be here today, she kind of co-organized that one. There was 2 amazing speakers. There was a dinner, and there was networking, and like facilitated networking at tables with the table leader, and then kind of having questions, and then just like engaging in different conversations from the attendees after like the keynotes. And then the event I moderated on Tuesday with the UW Foster Technical MBA program. It was a panel of 3 women in tech, 2 of them who are entrepreneurs, so startup founders, one of them who works as a UX designer at Amazon. And I just want to kind of share to give you an idea of some of the really kind of meaty topics that we covered. Because as myself, I like my style is to actually co-create with my panelists, with my kind of like collaborators. I want their input. I don't want to just, I want to know what's important to them, what we should know in the tech industry. Like, what are the questions that are going to be the most helpful and like really hard hitting, like really get in there. And so, well, we had a brief intro and then like share one proud career moment that resonates the most, and they got to kind of share their big career moment. And then we went into a question, which is, what's a moment in which you felt lost and then found? And so they were, and we had time, they had time to prepare because, we came up with these questions ahead of time. But so like, one of the panelists, she's actually spoken at a lot of kind of women in tech conferences. There's a really well-known one locally called the Women in Tech Regatta, or WIT Regatta. It happens every year in April. It will be coming up next month. And she actually said she's been on some panels where they had questions like, when's the last time you were crying in the bathroom at work? I mean, that's really...
Oh my God.
This is real stuff. Yeah. So we really like that. What's a moment in which you felt lost and then you felt found? And then I came up with this next question because, as we know, we're in a political climate where women are under attack every single day, even more so, especially like the underrepresented groups that we mentioned. And I said, I know the importance of community now more than ever. It is what we need to rely on. It is all we really have. And so this next question was, what does community look like to you? What have support systems and or resources looked a lot like along the journey? Because as I mentioned, we're here to support women. We're here as a resource. We want to provide mentorship. We want to provide access and resources and access to those resources, and connect people, build them up, encourage them. And really what's really important to me is assure them we have agency over ourselves. We are the architect of our futures. If you have someone to kind of lead you along this journey. And in fact, the name of this panel talk was actually navigating your career in tech. Yeah, that was the name. That was the whole theme of the panel. So that was the second question. And then third was really, really important too. How do you approach making your ask? So it was all about negotiation, how women, even though we are so much more than qualified in most cases, we're still afraid to make that ask, to make that leap. Like, we don't think, we're going to get that promotion, we're going to get that job because we're afraid to ask. And so like, even if your first couple asks don't go well, you're practicing and you're getting better, and, you're hopefully getting feedback. And so we had one of our panelists give this incredible framework. I don't know if she came up with it herself or she's heard it somewhere else, but it's called in fact, I probably should look it up because it's so good. It's like, it's the acronym is like MOM. It's like MOM, and it like each part stands for something, but that part we left with. I actually asked everyone to raise their hand in the room that was on if they're currently job searching, which of course, if you're in tech, a lot of people in tech are. If you are, if you're preparing for, to ask for a promotion, or if you're wanting to switch teams, which the panelist who works in UX at Amazon, she's been there for 7 years or something. And she's been on 4 or 5 teams because unfortunately the toxicity at Amazon came up a lot. Yeah. Yeah, she's like, nobody's recording this, right? Nobody's recording.
I don't blame her.
So yeah, I really I've heard from a lot of people there that it is team dependent, but yeah. And she's like, I shouldn't have stayed as long, I shouldn't have stayed in each role as long as I did, but just knowing the right time to make the move and getting ready for it. Right. So yeah, talking about preparing, to make your ask and what's an example of a good one and a bad one. Because we just, we didn't use imposter syndrome because I'm over that. I don't ever want to hear that word again. Really, it's not us. It's freaking societal structures are all working against us. It's nothing that we did. It's we've taken all this, negativity because everything seems to be working against us, but it's not us that's the problem. It's the world. It's the whole society, So we have nothing to feel bad about. We just we've been just our self-confidence takes a hit when you're like, oh, well, I'm trying to get here, but everywhere I go, there's obstacles and barriers in my way. And so I would say as an organization, we're trying to remove those barriers. We're trying to open doors. We're trying to uplift people so that they're higher and like they're moving up. They're not staying stagnant. We're growing. Like, you want to get the skills. You want to meet the right people. You want to be in the right spaces. And honestly, you need to be with people that are like a couple steps ahead of you, that are, like they're going to challenge you. You need to be uncomfortable to grow. So you need to be with the people who are where you want to be, and like kind of observe them and see what they're doing. Like I'm all about sharing best practices, sharing skills. Like, we're not, what do you call it, gatekeeping this information. Like if something's helping you succeed and helping you, like that panel on Tuesday, there were just, I have been tagged probably like 100 times already, because everybody's like talking about this event and we're sharing the pictures. And, the importance of these events during Women's History Month could not be more, I don't know what's the word I'm looking for. Like just timely, resonant, like, just like, this is like, I actually even had to ask, and this is nothing on them. This is nothing on UW Foster. I'm like, are we allowed to say Women's History Month in this event? Can I can I have that conversation? Are we allowed to say it? Is your funding dependent on it? Are you going to get your funding removed if we say that because it's federal? I'm like, yeah.
That's sad.
I know. And it really
it's
was.
sad that
It's definitely all over. We actually tagged it as that. I wore a purple because that's the color of Women's History Month. Like, thankfully it wasn't the case, but because, big organizations are removing every mention of these these holidays, these months. And also obviously Google and Apple is, removing it from their calendars. Like, I just had to ask, I'm like, I know you get a lot of federal funding. So is it going to hurt you if we have this event be billed as that? So thankfully that was not the case. But yeah, I mean, we just need to be way more visible, upfront, bold, talking about it. Like, do you know what really freaking shocked and freaking angered me? When I was trying to look up what companies were doing things for Women's History Month, I struggled this year to find any companies that were doing stuff. So I mentioned I'm a consultant. So my client is in the corporate giving space, which means she helps, she offers professional development, like trainings, workshops, webinars, speakers, in fact, a conference next week. So for nonprofits who are fundraising from the corporate space, so they're fundraising from Microsoft and from Amazon and the big ones. And so I was like, it's Women's History Month. Let's see what companies are doing special thing for Women's History Month. And all my normal places I look for this, I couldn't find anything. I'm like, I know Target's getting a bad rep. I know, I don't know, what are the other names that everyone's boycotting? All the ones that are removing DEI. Target is one, is a very surprising one because they seem like such a good company, and aren't they based in France or something? But yeah, so everyone's obviously Amazon, everyone's boycotting all these companies. I'm like, so who are the ones actually doing something good?
Yeah.
I did find one, and I have a relationship with them. It's Armoire, and they are, okay, this is a really shocker. It's a women-funded and all women employee company. They're a rental company, like a clothing rental company. They're based, they're in SoDo, so they're in Seattle. But I was like, I actually, we had an event with them last year during Women's History Month, and it was, the topic was, is entrepreneurship right for you? So we had that event with two female startup founders, and then the CEO, Vika. And this month they're having 8 events because of Women's History Month. Okay, I'm going to promote them, and I'm friends with them, and they're cool, and I was a customer of theirs. So let's do that. They're having 8 events for Women's History Month,
Wow.
And one of them is with Dress for Success. There's a panel with Dress for Success, and yeah, just awesome stuff. In fact, another women professional organization called Elevate Seattle was in one of the events, or partnering. So yeah, I mean, obviously the landscape has changed dramatically, but I couldn't find really anything. They were all from last year. I'm like, is someone scrubbing the internet or what? Are they literally just not doing it?
I think so. Yeah.
Really sad to me. So So support the ones that are continuing to do stuff for Women's History Month, that are continuing to keep DEI. As you know, Christina, I was hiking earlier today, which is unfortunately why I was late. But the woman I went with, she works in tech, and she's an older woman. She's like 60, actually. She's like a neighbor of mine here locally. And as she dropped me off and she was like looking on LinkedIn, she said, oh, my company was supposed to do like a special International Women's History Day on LinkedIn. And she looked and they ran this whole like, you know, animated thing that had all the women in their company, like their little headshot and like a little, you know, graphic or something. I'm like, oh, that's so cool. I love that your company did that. And, you know, we're just going to see if they posted it today. So anyway, so support the people that support women, support the companies that support women, amplify them, make sure that people are shopping at that with them or, you know, supporting their businesses, and that they continue, unfortunately, to defy orders to continue these programs, to continue saying, you know, Women's History Month. This is a continue, obviously, DEI, which is really, really huge. I'm actually worried that a lot of recruiters have been laid off from the tech industry because most of them are women.
Yeah.
I'm actually worried about that, you know, if they have some influence in the hiring decisions, because, you know, they're the ones bringing forth these candidates, and, you know, they're not looking, you know, on someone's gender, whether to hire them or not. I mean, it should be skills based, obviously, but
Yeah.
you know, if recruiting is going, you know, very like AI driven, right? And that's what is happening. A lot of recruiting is now done by AI. Like what's gonna happen to the pipeline of women actually getting through that door, like getting through that?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds it's still like such a struggle. So we are just about towards the end of our segment. Did you have any socials you want people to know about?
Yeah, and unfortunately we didn't get a chance to promote this, but we're Women in Tech Seattle on Instagram. Our recent events we promoted there, or like we did recaps there. So yeah, Women in Tech Seattle, and then we're on LinkedIn, which is probably not the platform, but and then we have a Facebook group as well. So okay. Yeah. Do you want me to write them in the chat, or? Okay. All right.
Yeah, so I think we are gonna go to break right now. Eileen, Lambert, thank you so much for being with us and sharing all your wisdom and experiences in the tech field. And thanks for being a part of an organization like Women in Tech, because we really need it, especially right now.
I do. Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Oh, you're very welcome.
And thank you for doing this event, and I hope you raise a lot of money.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Appreciate it.
All right, guys. So we're back, but not for long. That was such an amazing show. We had so many great guests. I wish we had more time. That went by quicker than I thought.
Yeah, I mean, when I saw that we were scheduled for 2 hours, I was just like, "Oh, that's a lot of talking." But then, like, because we have such a variety of people with different experiences, and it's like you gotta get everybody's backstory, and it's like it's not that long. It's a little bit more intimidating than it seems. But meanwhile, also thank you, Major Hurricane, for the $10 donation for 1,000 dreams again. Much appreciated. Thank you for hanging out too. Seeing you interacting in the chat quite a bit. So that's always appreciated.
Yeah, thank you. All right. So I think we're wrapping up now. Thank you guys so much for being here. I really loved all the experiences and the different perspectives we got. Do you have any final thoughts?
Yeah, it's very, I think, important for people to share their stories. And so, the people that we talked to today, it's just a small subset of the amazing accomplishments that women are capable of achieving. I think we kind of hit on this subject a little bit over multiple discussions, but ultimately, we can advance, women's causes, or really anybody's causes, just by speaking about it, by sharing our experiences, by, in having this, camaraderie and but also too not letting our differences divide us, but rather, be something for us to connect over. Because, when no matter who you meet out in the world, right? It's like you're gonna be able to find something that you have in common with that person. And so rather than seeing differences as something that separates us, I just hope that we can move forward into a place where we can appreciate our individuality, I think as Violacious mentioned in the chat earlier. So we'll have links again for some of the organizations, some of the efforts that we've been speaking about. So there's 1,000 Dreams Fund, which is the charity that we're supporting today, alongside the Seattle Women's Guild. So this is the we represent SOBA, the Seattle Online Broadcasters Association, which is the local Twitch meetup for the Seattle Pacific Northwest area. And then maybe Rock, do you want to talk about the Women's Guild a little bit?
I think we gotta go, but
okay. Well done.
but thank you guys. You're not cutting me off, okay. So I'm not involved in the Women's Guild yet, but we do. I did work with Violacious for this stream. She kind of worked with Soba to get the stream together, and it's very fun working with them. So I hope we see more things with them in the future. And everything you said, Fairly, was very well said. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here to co-host with me.
Oh yeah, no, thank you for inviting me. That's the thing with if anybody in the SOBA community, if you're looking to get into some stuff and like do some things, like Rock is like the best person for that. Like she always is like making things happen, like always doing stuff, always looking for like new opportunities. I'm just like over here just existing and she's just like, "Hey, I have all these things that you could do." And I'm like, "Okay." Sure. So,
oh, I
much
appreciate
appreciated.
you. I appreciate you. Picnic Blanket Doodles, thank you so much for the donation. I mean, it's such a good
Yay!
cause. Thank you so much.
Claps.
All right. All right. So I think that is it. Thank you guys for spending International Women's Day with us. I had a blast. I think this was really fun.
Yeah, can't wait till we have another one.
Me too. Me too. We got to make it an annual thing or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. You guys take care. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thanks for being here.
Yeah. Have a great one, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.